Hello, welcome to Return to Life. Today, we will listen to a story about the cracks in life where people have felt weak, full of doubt, yet kept moving forward. If you are standing between exhaustion and hope, this story may be for you.
The emergency room was unnaturally bright. Not warm, not comforting, just white. A hard clinical white that erased shadows and flattened faces into something distant and unreal. The air smelled sharply of disinfectant, mixed with the faint metallic scent that lingered wherever blood had passed through recently. Maria Esteban lay on a gurney beneath those lights. Her face was wrapped in layers of gauze, hastily applied but already stained in places with a pale yellow seep. What skin remained exposed around the edges was swollen, mottled in shades of deep red and bruised purple, as if her face had been scalded and beaten at the same time. Her eyes were so swollen they barely opened, and when they did, they fluttered, unfocused, struggling to understand where she was. A heart monitor beeped steadily beside her. Too fast. Faster than normal. A doctor stood at the foot of the bed, flipping through a chart on a tablet. His voice was calm, controlled, stripped of emotion, the way voices often are, in rooms where emotions run too high. "You have a deep chemical burn," he said, looking up at last. "And there are signs that infection may already be entering your bloodstream." The words landed heavily in the room, but he didn't pause for them to sink in. He had said versions of this sentence many times before. Beside the bed, Isabel stood frozen. Her hands trembled, fingers clenched together, as if holding herself upright required constant effort. She stared at Maria's bandaged face, trying to reconcile it with the woman she had hugged just days earlier, the friend she had laughed with, the friend who had only wanted to feel better about her skin. "From a skin peel?" Isabel asked, her voice cracking despite her attempt to keep it steady. "That's what this is from? A facial peel?" The doctor nodded once. "Chemical exposure," he said, "likely high-concentration acids. The skin barrier has been severely compromised." Maria tried to speak, but her throat was dry, her lips stiff and painful beneath the gauze. A faint sound escaped her mouth, more breath than word. The doctor leaned in slightly, just enough to hear her. "Try not to talk right now," he said. "We're starting 4 fluids and broad-spectrum antibiotics. We've drawn blood cultures. Right now, we're watching very closely for sepsis." The word hung in the air. Sepsis. Isabel swallowed hard. Is she going to be okay?" The doctor didn't answer immediately. He met Isabel's eyes, his expression not cruel, not alarmist, just honest. "We're doing everything we can," he said. "The next 24 hours are important." A nurse moved quickly to Maria's side, adjusting the 4-line, checking vitals, calling out numbers that Isabel barely understood but somehow knew were not good. Heart rate elevated, blood pressure trending low. Maria drifted in and out, the sounds around her blurring into a dull roar. Her face burned beneath the bandages, a deep, throbbing pain that no position could relieve. Every heartbeat seemed to pulse directly through her skin. She had come to a spa for glass skin. That was the phrase they used, Hollywood glass skin. Skin so smooth and luminous it reflected light like polished glass. Skin that erased years, insecurity, and shame in a single treatment. What they had poured onto her face instead had stripped away her skin's most basic function, protection. Human skin is not decoration. It is not just something we look at in mirrors or judge in photographs. It is the body's largest organ. A living barrier, a wall that keeps the outside world from invading what lies beneath. When that wall is breached, bacteria do not knock, they do not ask permission. They go straight in. Maria's body had been left exposed, raw and vulnerable, and the bacteria that live harmlessly on the surface of everyone's skin had found an open door. Now they were inside. Isabel watched as another doctor entered the room, murmured something to the first, and glanced briefly at Maria's chart. The tone was urgent but controlled, efficient. This was not panic, this was protocol. "Has she had any recent procedures?" the second doctor asked. Isabel nodded quickly. "A peel, at a spa. They said it was medical grade." "Do you know what chemicals were used?" he asked. Isabel shook her head. "They didn't say. They just said it was safe." The doctor exhaled slowly through his nose. "We see this more often than people think," he said, not unkindly, "especially when treatments are done outside of proper medical supervision." Maria stirred again, her brow furrowing beneath the bandages as if some fragment of the conversation had reached her. Pain cut through her in waves, Hot, relentless, impossible to ignore. In that moment, as she lay under fluorescent lights with machines breathing and beeping around her, Maria was no longer thinking about wrinkles, or acne scars, or uneven texture. She was thinking about survival. Just days earlier, she had sat in a softly lit room that smelled of essential oils. Gentle music had played in the background. A smiling technician had assured her that everything she was feeling was normal. A little discomfort means it's working, the woman had said. Now discomfort had a new meaning. Now the stakes were not cosmetic, they were biological. The doctor adjusted Maria's blanket and looked down at her face one more time. "Your skin normally acts as your first line of defense," he said quietly, almost as if explaining it to himself. "When it's damaged this deeply, the body has to fight much harder." Isabel reached out, carefully taking Maria's hand, avoiding the tubes and wires. Her grip was tight, desperate. "All this," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Just for better skin." The heart monitor continued its rapid beeping, indifferent to regret, hope, or disbelief. Maria had gone looking for a new face. What she had found instead was the thin, terrifying line between beauty culture and the emergency room. And as the doctors moved with purpose around her bed, one truth became impossible to ignore. When skin is destroyed, the danger is not how you look. It's whether your body can keep you alive. Maria's apartment was quiet in a way that felt permanent, as if sound itself had learned not to linger there. The furniture was simple, carefully arranged, untouched by clutter. Nothing was broken, nothing was unfinished. Yet everything felt paused, suspended in a state of careful maintenance rather than lived-in comfort. The kind of home that belonged to someone who did not want to draw attention, to herself or to her life. The bathroom was the smallest room, but it carried the most weight. A white towel hung neatly over the mirror. It had been there for years. Maria told herself it was practical at first. The lighting in the bathroom was harsh, unforgiving. Anyone would want to soften it. Anyone would want a break from fluorescent truth first thing in the morning. But over time, the towel became less about light and more about avoidance. She knew what she would see if she pulled it down. Uneven texture along her cheeks, acne scars that caught the light at the wrong angle, redness that never seemed to fade no matter what product promised otherwise, skin that refused to behave the way glossy advertisements said it should. At 38, Maria didn't consider herself old, but she no longer felt young either. She occupied an uncomfortable middle space where patience was expected, yet standards had not softened. She worked remotely, a job that allowed her to avoid cameras whenever possible. During video meetings, she kept her screen dark or angled just enough that her face stayed out of focus. She blamed her internet connection, the lighting, the software. No one pushed back. People rarely do when someone quietly removes themselves. In the mornings, she washed her face carefully, her movements slow and methodical, as if rushing might make things worse. She applied products she had researched exhaustively, gentle cleansers, barrier creams, sunscreens labeled with reassuring words like repair and calming. Nothing dramatic, nothing reckless. She wasn't chasing perfection, she just wanted peace. The towel stayed on the mirror. Maria had learned long ago that insecurity did not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it settled in gently, disguised as practicality, disguised as routine. It didn't scream, it whispered. It told her that life would be easier if she didn't look too closely. And for the most part, she listened. The moment that cracked her careful balance came on an ordinary Tuesday night. She was scrolling through her phone absent-mindedly, thumb moving out of habit more than curiosity, when she saw the photo. Her ex-husband. He stood beside a woman Maria had never met, his arm resting comfortably around her waist. They were smiling at the camera, the kind of smile that didn't try too hard, the kind that came from familiarity, ease. The woman was younger, that much was obvious, but what caught Maria's attention wasn't her age, it was her skin, smooth, clear, luminous in a way that seemed effortless. The lighting in the photo was natural, unfiltered, and yet her face reflected light softly, evenly, without interruption. Maria felt something tighten in her chest. It wasn't jealousy. It wasn't anger. It was something quieter and more unsettling. Replacement. She stared at the photo longer than she meant to, her mind filling in gaps she didn't have evidence for. Thoughts layered themselves without permission. He looks happy. She looks easy. She doesn't have to hide. Maria set her phone down, face down on the table, as if it might continue speaking if she didn't silence it. She told herself she wasn't comparing. She told herself she had moved on. She told herself she was fine. But later that night, As she brushed her teeth and glanced accidentally toward the covered mirror, she stopped. Her reflection stared back at her anyway, distorted in the narrow strip of glass left uncovered at the edge. She leaned closer without thinking. The towel didn't move. She didn't pull it down, but she stood there, inches away, studying what little she could see. "This can't be it," she whispered to herself. It wasn't vanity that spoke those words. It was fear. Fear that this was as good as it would get. Fear that time would continue to move forward while she remained frozen, hiding behind excuses and soft lighting. Fear that she would slowly disappear, not because she was unworthy, but because she no longer felt present. "I just need to fix this," she said quietly. Just this one thing. She wasn't dreaming of a new face. She was dreaming of relief. That night, Maria found herself searching terms she had searched before, but with more urgency. Acne scars, texture, adult skin renewal, professional treatments, solutions that promised not maintenance, but resolution. Her phone responded immediately. Ad after ad appeared, perfectly timed, perfectly worded, images of glowing skin, testimonials from women her age, before and after photos that felt less like marketing and more like hope. Hollywood glass skin, medical grade peel, radiance in one session, limited time offer. She felt a flicker of skepticism rise and then fade. She wasn't naive. She knew better than to believe everything she saw online. But the language was careful, familiar. It didn't promise miracles. It promised expertise, professionalism, science, and most importantly, it promised an end. Maria read reviews late into the night. 5 stars, hundreds of them. Stories from women who sounded like her. Busy, practical, tired of wasting money on products that never delivered. "I wish I'd done this sooner. I finally feel confident again. It changed everything." She noticed how many reviews mentioned pain, but framed it as a badge of honor. "It burns, but that's how you know it's working." Maria paused at that line, reading it twice. Burning didn't sound good. But then again, neither did living like this forever. The next morning, she booked the appointment. She didn't tell Isabel right away. Isabel had always been practical, the kind of friend who asked uncomfortable questions and waited for real answers. She would want details, credentials, explanations. Maria didn't have the energy for that. She told herself she would explain later, after it worked. In the days leading up to the appointment, Maria noticed a subtle shift in her mood. Not excitement exactly, but anticipation, a sense that something was finally moving, that she was doing something instead of enduring. She imagined pulling the towel off the mirror one day and not flinching. She imagined walking into a room without thinking about lighting. She imagined being photographed without calculating angles. These thoughts didn't feel unrealistic. They felt earned. On the morning of the appointment, Maria dressed carefully, choosing clothes that made her feel composed. Neutral colors, clean lines, nothing flashy. She didn't want attention. She wanted control. As she left her apartment, she hesitated in the bathroom one last time. The towel still hung in place. She reached for it, fingers brushing the edge. Then she stopped. Soon, she told herself. After today, she left without looking. At the spa, everything looked exactly the way she hoped it would. Bright but soft lighting. Clean surfaces. White walls decorated with framed photos of flawless faces and elegant script lettering. The scent of essential oils hung in the air, subtle and reassuring. The technician greeted her warmly, smiling with practiced ease. Maria relaxed. This didn't feel risky. It felt responsible. She filled out a short form, checking boxes, answering questions that seemed thorough enough at a glance. The technician skimmed it quickly, nodding along. "Your skin's actually pretty resilient," she said, studying Maria's face. "You're a good candidate for a stronger peel." Stronger. The word should have stopped her. Instead, it reassured her. Because strong meant effective. Strong meant decisive. Strong meant this wouldn't be another half solution that required endless patience. As Maria lay back on the treatment bed, eyes closed, she felt a familiar mix of nerves and hope settle in her chest. This was it. This was the moment where things began to change. She didn't know yet that change can move in more than one direction, and that sometimes the most dangerous moment isn't when pain begins, but when someone convinces you that pain is exactly what you need. Maria didn't realize how precisely she had been timed. The first ad appeared less than an hour after she searched for treatments the night before. It wasn't aggressive. It didn't shout. It simply slipped into her screen between posts from friends and news headlines. Dressed in calm colors and professional language, Hollywood glass skin, it read. Clinically inspired. 1 session. Visible results. She scrolled past it at first. Then she saw it again. Different wording. Same promise. Then again, this time paired with a smiling woman who looked unmistakably familiar. Early 40s. Confident. Relaxed. Photographed in natural light without heavy makeup. The kind of face that didn't look edited. Just resolved. Maria paused. She told herself it was coincidence. That everyone saw these things. That ads were just ads. But the longer she stayed on her phone, the more the message followed her, reshaped slightly each time to fit her hesitation. Medical-grade peel. Doctor-developed formula. Safe. Controlled. Effective. The words were careful. They didn't promise perfection. They promised improvement. They didn't sell fantasy. They sold relief. By the 3rd day, Maria stopped questioning why the ads were there and began focusing on whether she should respond to them. This was the stage few people talk about. Not desperation, not impulse, fatigue, the fatigue of trying to make responsible choices for years and still feeling stuck. The fatigue of being told that patience would pay off, while time quietly continued its work. The fatigue of doing everything right and seeing minimal change. Fatigue makes the extraordinary sound reasonable. When Maria finally clicked on the spa's website, she didn't feel reckless. She felt methodical. The site was polished, understated. No flashing banners, no exaggerated claims, just clean typography, neutral tones, and language that leaned heavily on credibility, advanced exfoliation, customized treatment protocols, performed by trained professionals. There was a page explaining how chemical peels worked, simplified but confident. A short paragraph about skin renewal. A few references to dermatological principles, enough to sound informed without overwhelming the reader. It felt safe. She scrolled through the testimonials next. There were dozens. Women describing how nervous they had been, how intense it felt at first, how worth it was afterward. Several mentioned discomfort, even pain. But every one of them framed it as a necessary step toward transformation. It burned, but that's how you know it's doing something. I was scared, but I trusted the process. I wish I'd done this sooner instead of wasting time on creams. Maria noticed how often the word strong appeared. Strong peel, strong results, strong skin. She didn't see anyone talking about complications. She didn't see anyone asking questions. She didn't realize how many reviews were written in the same voice, using the same rhythm, repeating the same reassurances. What she did see was possibility. The spa itself was located in a well-known shopping center, surrounded by familiar brands and busy foot traffic. When she arrived for her appointment, that detail alone lowered her guard. Danger, she believed, lived in hidden places. Not here. Inside, everything looked intentional. White walls, soft lighting, subtle music, a faint scent of eucalyptus that suggested cleanliness rather than indulgence. Framed photos lined one wall, faces glowing, pores invisible, smiles confident. Maria checked in at the front desk, her name already expected. "First time?" the receptionist asked warmly. "Yes," Maria replied. "You're going to love it," the woman said, handing her a clipboard. "Just fill this out." The form was brief. Name, age, skin concerns, allergies. Maria hesitated, pen hovering over the paper. There was a question about medications, but it was vague. She listed what she thought mattered and left the rest blank. No one followed up. No one asked her to clarify. The technician appeared moments later, friendly and relaxed, dressed in crisp scrubs that suggested medical authority without actually claiming it. She studied Maria's face closely, tilting her head slightly, nodding as if confirming something she already knew. "You've got good skin," she said. "It's just stubborn." The word landed gently, almost affectionately. Maria smiled, relieved. "Some people need something stronger," the technician continued, "especially when the skin's thicker. Mild peels won't really touch this." She said it casually, like a fact rather than a judgment. Maria felt a familiar mix of validation and vulnerability. Stronger sounded decisive. It sounded like an answer instead of another experiment. "Is it safe?" Maria asked. The technician smiled. "We do this all the time. You'll feel some heat, maybe stinging. That's normal. That's the acids working." She didn't mention percentages. She didn't mention contraindications. She didn't ask if Maria had used retinoids recently, or if her skin barrier was compromised, or if she'd ever reacted badly to treatments before. She didn't do a patch test. Instead, she spoke in confidence. "Trust me," she said. "Your skin can handle it." This was the moment Maria crossed the invisible line. Not because she was careless, but because she was tired of second-guessing herself. The treatment room was quiet, dimly lit. Maria lay back on the bed, eyes closed, her face freshly cleansed. She listened to the technician move around, the soft clink of bottles, the sound of gloves snapping into place. "Ready?" the technician asked. Maria nodded. The first touch was cold, then warm, then hot. The sensation intensified quickly, spreading across her cheeks, her forehead, her chin. It wasn't the mild tingling she had expected. It was sharp, insistent, like heat pressing deeper with each second. Maria's eyes watered involuntarily. "This feels really strong," she said, her voice tight. The technician didn't stop. "That's normal," she replied immediately. "The stronger the peel, the more you feel it. That's how you know it's effective." Maria tried to breathe through it, reminding herself that discomfort was temporary. That results required commitment. That backing out now would mean admitting she was too weak to follow through. The burning continued to climb. It no longer felt surface level. It felt invasive. "Is it supposed to hurt this much?" Maria asked again, her words coming faster now. The technician glanced at her face, unfazed. "You're doing great. Almost done. Almost." Maria focused on that word, clinging to it as the seconds stretched on. When the solution was finally wiped away, relief came too slowly. The heat lingered, pulsing beneath her skin. The technician applied something cool afterward, but it felt inadequate, like pouring water on embers that hadn't finished burning. "That redness is expected," the technician said, as if reading Maria's thoughts. "You're going to peel beautifully, beautifully." Maria sat up slowly, catching a glimpse of her reflection in a small mirror across the room. Her face was crimson, glossy, tight. It looked like a sunburn, a bad one. "It'll calm down," the technician assured her. "Trust the process. Trust." Maria paid at the front desk, booked a follow-up appointment she didn't know she'd keep, and walked back into the mall with her face tingling beneath a layer of soothing cream. People glanced at her as she passed. She told herself it was temporary. That evening, as the heat in her skin refused to subside, Maria repeated the same words to herself over and over. "This is normal. This is working. This is what strong treatments feel like." She didn't know yet that there was a difference between controlled injury and uncontrolled damage, and that the most dangerous misunderstanding in skincare isn't ignorance. It's misplaced trust. By the time Maria reached her apartment that evening, the burning had not eased. It had changed. At first, it was a sharp, surface-level heat, like a sunburn that hadn't finished forming. But as the hours passed, the sensation deepened, settling into something heavier and more relentless. Her skin felt tight, swollen, as if it no longer belonged to her. Every movement of her face, blinking, swallowing, even breathing too deeply, sent fresh waves of discomfort rippling outward. She stood in the bathroom, lights dimmed, the towel still covering the mirror. She didn't need to see her face to know something was wrong. When she pressed a cold compress gently against her cheek, the relief lasted only seconds before the heat surged back stronger than before. It felt less like irritation now and more like an internal fire, spreading beneath the surface, ignoring every attempt to calm it. "This is normal," she whispered to herself, repeating the technician's voice in her mind. "This is working." She applied the aftercare cream they had given her. A small jar with a generic label and no list of ingredients. It smelled faintly medicinal, unfamiliar. The cream sat on her skin without absorbing, trapping the heat underneath. Her phone buzzed with a notification from the spa. "Redness and warmth are expected after a strong peel," the message read. "Avoid touching your face. Trust the process. Trust the process." Maria lay awake most of the night, drifting in and out of shallow sleep. Each time she woke, the burning was still there, pulsing steadily, synchronized with her heartbeat. Her skin felt stretched to its limit, as if it might split if she moved the wrong way. By morning, the tightness had intensified. When she carefully touched her cheek, her fingers came away slightly damp, not sweat, something else. She went to the bathroom and hesitated before the mirror. The towel still hung in place, but now curiosity edged out fear. Slowly, she reached up and pulled it aside. Her face was an angry red, swollen unevenly, glossy in a way that didn't look like hydration but like rawness. In some areas, the skin looked thin, almost translucent. In others, it appeared darker, mottled, bruised beneath the surface. She leaned closer. Tiny fissures had formed near her mouth. When she moved her lips, they stung sharply, and a thin line of clear yellow fluid seeped out. Her stomach dropped. This doesn't look like peeling, she thought. But she pushed the thought away just as quickly. She had read about purging, about shedding, about the skin pushing out impurities before renewal. She had seen images online that looked alarming at first, but turned into glowing results days later. This is just the ugly part, she told herself. Everyone says it gets worse before it gets better. She canceled her morning meetings and stayed home. Curtains drawn, phone within reach. She avoided video calls, avoided light, avoided the mirror as much as possible. By midday, the discomfort had escalated into pain. Not the manageable pain she had expected. Not soreness, not sensitivity. This was different. The burning had become sharper, more localized in some areas, deeper in others. Her face felt swollen to the point where it was difficult to open her mouth fully. Swallowing hurt, talking hurt. When she tried to eat soup, the steam rising from the bowl made her flinch. She texted the spa. "My face is burning a lot," she wrote. "Is this still normal?" The response came quickly. Yes, especially with a strong peel. Everyone's tolerance is different. The stronger the sensation, the better the result. "You're doing great." The words should have comforted her. Instead, they unsettled her. She remembered asking during the treatment if it was supposed to hurt that much. She remembered how quickly the technician had dismissed her concern, how confidently she had said that pain meant progress. Maria had wanted to believe her, because believing was easier than questioning. That night, the peeling began. It didn't start delicately, the way she had imagined. Thin flakes lifting away to reveal fresh skin beneath. Instead, large sections loosened all at once, separating unevenly, leaving raw, glistening patches behind. When she gently dabbed her face with a clean cloth, more fluid seeped out. It was pale yellow, slightly sticky, and it didn't stop. Her skin throbbed. She felt heat radiating outward, as if her face were a source of warmth in the room. She began to shiver despite the temperature, her body reacting to something it didn't understand. Maria sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her hands, now stained faintly with dried fluid. This doesn't feel like beauty, she thought. Her phone rang. It was Isabel. "Hey," Isabel said cautiously. "I've been thinking about you. How did the peel go?" Maria hesitated. "It's intense," she said. "But they said that's normal." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Can I see?" Isabel asked. Maria didn't want to. She didn't want anyone else to see this stage, this moment of uncertainty, but she felt a flicker of relief at the thought of not being alone with it. She turned on the video. Isabel's face filled the screen, relaxed at first, then tightening. "Maria," she said slowly, "that doesn't look right." "It's just purging," Maria replied too quickly. "It's supposed to peel." Isabel leaned closer to her screen. "That's not peeling," she said. It looks like it's weeping." Maria felt defensive heat rise in her chest, cutting through the physical pain. "You're overreacting," she said. "They told me this could happen." "Did they say anything about fluid? Or burning like this?" Isabel asked. "They said discomfort is normal." "This isn't discomfort," Isabel said firmly. "This looks like a burn." The word landed heavily between them. Maria shook her head. "You don't understand," she said. "This is medical grade. They know what they're doing." Isabel didn't argue right away. She studied Maria's face through the screen, her expression shifting from concern to something closer to alarm. "How long did they leave the peel on?" she asked. Maria hesitated again. "I don't know," she admitted. "A few minutes. I think." "Did they neutralize it right away?" "I think so." "What did they put on afterward?" "I don't know," Maria said, her voice quieter now. "Some serum." There was another pause. "Maria," Isabel said carefully, "strong chemical peels are controlled injuries. They're supposed to be precise. This looks uncontrolled." The word echoed in Maria's mind. Uncontrolled. After the call ended, Maria sat in silence, the room dark around her. Her skin continued to throb, sending sharp signals that something was wrong, something beyond normal recovery. But still, she waited. She waited because she was afraid of being wrong, afraid of going to a doctor and being told she was overreacting, afraid of admitting to herself more than anyone else that she had made a mistake. By the second night, the pain was no longer confined to her face. She felt it radiating down her neck, into her jaw, behind her eyes. Her head ached. Her body felt heavy, sluggish. When she checked her temperature, it was slightly elevated. Just stress, she told herself. Just inflammation. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the technician's words over and over. The stronger the peel, the better the result. It was then, somewhere between exhaustion and fear, that the truth finally surfaced. Pain was not a measurement of success. Pain was a warning. In proper medical treatments, discomfort has limits. There are thresholds, protocols, safeguards designed to prevent exactly what was happening to her now. When those safeguards are ignored, pain doesn't mean effectiveness. It means damage. Maria pressed her fingers lightly against her cheek again and flinched as a sharp sting shot through her. Her skin felt fragile, compromised, as if the slightest pressure might tear it open further. For the first time since the treatment, she allowed herself to consider a possibility she had been avoiding. This wasn't purging. This wasn't healing. This was her skin breaking down. And the longer she waited, the worse it was becoming. By the third day, Maria stopped sleeping altogether. Her body lay exhausted on the bed, but her mind refused to shut down. Every time she closed her eyes, the burning surged forward again, sharp and demanding, as if pain itself were tapping insistently on her consciousness, refusing to be ignored. Her face no longer felt like skin. It felt exposed, fragile, alive in the worst possible way. When she finally forced herself to stand and walk to the bathroom, the room tilted slightly beneath her feet. She grabbed the edge of the sink to steady herself, her fingers trembling. The towel still hung over the mirror, but now it felt ridiculous, almost cruel. There was no hiding from this anymore. She pulled it down. Her reflection startled her. The swelling had increased, distorting her features subtly but unmistakably. Her cheeks looked uneven, puffed in some places and sunken in others. Patches of skin had darkened to a sickly yellow purple, while other areas were raw and wet, shining under the light. Thin streams of fluid traced downward from the corners of her mouth and along her jawline. It had a faint smell now, not strong, not obvious, just wrong. Maria leaned closer, her breath shallow. "This is still purging," she said aloud, forcing the words out as if saying them might make them true. "It's just detox. My skin is shedding." She had read those exact phrases countless times online. She remembered influencers talking about ugly days after treatments. She remembered photos labeled Day 3, Day 4, Day 5. Faces that looked alarming before transforming into something enviable. She clung to those memories now, arranging them carefully in her mind to block out everything else. If she accepted that this wasn't normal, then she would have to act. And acting meant admitting that something had gone very wrong. Her phone buzzed again. A message from Isabel. "Can I come by today?" Maria stared at the screen longer than necessary. She typed back slowly. "I'm fine. Just recovering." Another message appeared almost immediately. "Maria, please. I don't like this." Maria set the phone down without replying. She didn't want witnesses. She didn't want urgency. She wanted time. Time for things to calm down, to reverse themselves, to justify the faith she had placed in that room, that technician, those promises. Throughout the day, her symptoms quietly multiplied. The burning remained constant, but now it was joined by a dull ache that spread into her temples and down her neck. Her throat felt sore. Swallowing became uncomfortable. Her body felt heavy, as if gravity itself had increased. By afternoon she felt chilled despite wearing layers. She checked her temperature again. It was higher than before. Still not alarming, she told herself, just inflammation. Her heart, however, seemed to be racing. She could feel it pounding in her chest even when she lay perfectly still. Each beat felt louder, more insistent, as if her body were trying to get her attention in the only language it had left. She ignored it. Around sunset, Isabel showed up anyway. Maria heard the knock but didn't answer at first. She sat frozen on the couch, heart pounding, staring at the door. The knock came again, firmer this time. "Maria," Isabel called. "I know you're home." Reluctantly, Maria stood and opened the door. Isabel took one look at her face and went still. "Oh my God," she said quietly. Maria tried to smile. "The movement hurt. It looks worse than it feels," she lied. Isabel stepped inside, closing the door behind her. She didn't sit down. She didn't take off her coat. Her eyes never left Maria's face. "This isn't a peel," Isabel said. "This is an injury." Maria felt irritation flare, sharp and defensive. "You're not a doctor," she said. "No," Isabel replied. "But I know what infected wounds look like." She reached out instinctively, then stopped herself, afraid to touch Maria's skin. "Your face is swollen," she continued. "You're leaking fluid. And you're warm." "It's just part of the process," Maria insisted. "They said strong peels can do this." "Who said that?" Isabel asked. The spa, Isabel repeated, her voice tightening. "Not a doctor, not a dermatologist. A spa." Maria turned away, moving slowly, carefully, as if sudden motion might cause her skin to tear. "You don't understand," she said. "If I go to the hospital and they tell me it's nothing, I'll look stupid. I'll look dramatic." Isabel stepped closer. "Maria," she said firmly, "this is not about looking dramatic. This is about your health." Maria shook her head. "You're making it worse than it is." Isabel's expression hardened, not with anger but with fear. "Smell this," she said softly. Maria froze. "What?" she asked. "There's a smell," Isabel said. "It's faint, but it's there." Maria's chest tightened. She had noticed it too. But hearing it spoken aloud shattered something she had been holding together with sheer will. "It's probably just the cream," Maria said weakly. Isabel didn't respond. She reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. "I'm calling urgent care." "No," Maria said quickly. "Don't." Isabel met her eyes. "If you collapse, I'm calling an ambulance," she said. "Your choice." The words landed with weight. Maria opened her mouth to argue and felt a sudden wave of dizziness wash over her. The room tilted sharply. Her vision blurred at the edges. She grabbed the back of a chair, but her knees buckled anyway. Isabel caught her just in time. Maria's body felt heavy, uncooperative, as if it no longer fully belonged to her. Her heart raced uncontrollably now, her breaths coming shallow and fast. "I'm fine," she whispered, even as the lie collapsed under its own weight. Isabel eased her onto the couch, pressing a hand to Maria's forehead. "You're burning up," she said. "We're going to the ER." Maria wanted to protest. She wanted to argue. She wanted to rewind the last 72 hours and choose differently, but all she could do was nod weakly. As Isabel grabbed her keys and helped her to her feet, Maria felt a cold realization settle in beneath the pain and confusion. She had misunderstood something fundamental. Purging was temporary irritation. This was deterioration. Purging did not make your heart race. Purging did not make your skin weep and smell wrong. Purging did not make you dizzy and feverish. Her body wasn't healing. It was fighting. By the time they reached the car, Maria's hands were shaking uncontrollably. Her thoughts drifted in and out, fragmented, disjointed. As Isabel drove toward the hospital, gripping the steering wheel tightly, Maria stared out the window at the passing streetlights, each one blurring into the next. She had spent days telling herself she just needed to wait, that patience would be rewarded, that fear was unnecessary. Now, with her body signaling distress in every possible way, she finally understood the danger of that belief. Waiting had not protected her. It had brought her here, and as the hospital came into view, Maria realized with sudden clarity that this moment, this decision to finally seek help, might be the thin line separating recovery from something far worse. The emergency room doors slid open with a mechanical hiss, swallowing Maria and Isabel into a world that moved faster than either of them could process. Bright lights, sharp smells, voices overlapping, efficient and clipped. A nurse appeared immediately, guiding Maria onto a gurney, while another attached a blood pressure cuff around her arm. The numbers flashed on the screen, and the nurse's expression tightened just slightly before she masked it again. "Heart rate's high," she said to no one in particular. "Blood pressure's low." Maria tried to focus on the ceiling as they wheeled her down the corridor, the tiles above blurring into long white lines. Her skin burned beneath the bandages Isabel had loosely wrapped around her face before leaving the apartment. The pain now joined by a deep, unsettling weakness that made her limbs feel heavy and unresponsive. A doctor leaned over her, his face coming into view. "Maria," he said clearly, "I'm Dr. Harris. I need to ask you a few questions." She nodded faintly. "Have you had any recent medical or cosmetic procedures?" he asked. Maria opened her mouth to answer, but her tongue felt thick, uncooperative. The words tangled before they could come out. Isabel stepped in. She had a chemical peel at a spa 3 days ago. The doctor's eyebrows lifted almost imperceptibly. "Do you know what chemicals were used?" he asked. Isabel shook her head. "They didn't tell her." "Did they mention concentrations?" He continued. No. Any paperwork? Consent forms? Just a short intake sheet. The doctor exhaled slowly, straightening as the gurney came to a stop. We're going to start 4 fluids, he said. And broad-spectrum antibiotics. Why antibiotics? Isabel asked, fear edging into her voice. Because her skin barrier appears to be severely compromised, Dr. Harris replied, and she's showing signs of systemic infection. Maria heard the words but struggled to connect them to herself. Systemic infection. They sounded distant, abstract. Another nurse moved in, expertly inserting an 4 into Maria's arm. A cold sensation spread as fluid began flowing into her vein. Does she have a fever? The nurse asked. Yes, Isabel said. Low grade, but it's been rising. Dr. Harris nodded. We'll draw blood cultures, lactate levels, CBC, CMP. The acronyms meant nothing to Maria, but the urgency in his voice did. She felt herself slipping, consciousness thinning around the edges. Her heart raced uncontrollably now, pounding so hard she wondered if it might burst through her chest. Stay with me, Maria, the nurse said gently, adjusting the monitor leads on her chest. The machine began to beep more insistently. Dr. Harris glanced at the screen. Tachycardia, he said. Let's move. They transferred her into a curtained bay, the thin fabric offering privacy but no comfort. A second doctor joined them, speaking quietly with Dr. Harris as they examined Maria's face more closely. The gauze was carefully removed. The air felt cold against her exposed skin. One of the doctors leaned in, inspecting the damage with practiced eyes. He didn't flinch, but his jaw tightened slightly. This isn't just irritation, he said. This is a deep chemical burn. Isabel's breath caught. From a facial peel? Yes, the doctor replied. If high-concentration acids are applied too long or without proper neutralization, they can destroy layers of skin. He straightened and looked at Isabel directly. Skin isn't cosmetic, he continued. It's a living organ. It's the body's first line of defense. Maria heard that. First line of defense. When that barrier is damaged, the doctor went on, bacteria that normally live harmlessly on the surface can enter the body. Enter where? Isabel asked. The bloodstream, he said. The room seemed to shrink. Dr. Harris returned to Maria's side. Your blood pressure is dropping, he said calmly. We're increasing fluids. Maria tried to speak, panic flickering through the fog in her mind. Am I? She began, then stopped, afraid of finishing the question. We're monitoring you closely, Dr. Harris said. Right now, our concern is sepsis. The word landed hard. Sepsis. Even in her dazed state, Maria knew what it meant. Infection spreading through the blood. The body's immune response spiraling out of control. Organs beginning to fail. People didn't associate that word with facials. Isabel gripped the side of the bed. Is she going to die? She asked bluntly. Dr. Harris didn't dodge the question. She's sick, he said, and she's at risk. But she's here now. That matters. They moved quickly after that. Blood was drawn. More 4 lines placed. Antibiotics pushed into her system. The beeping of the monitor became a constant presence. A reminder that her body was under siege. Maria drifted again. Fragments of conversation floating in and out. Lactates elevated. She's hypotensive. We need to watch her closely. At some point she felt the gurney move again, the ceiling lights passing overhead once more. Where are you taking her? Isabel asked. To the ICU, a nurse replied. For closer monitoring. The letters echoed ominously. ICU, Intensive Care Unit. As they rolled her into the unit, the atmosphere shifted. The room was quieter but more focused, the air heavy with concentration. Machines lined the walls, each one humming softly, waiting. A nurse adjusted Maria's position, speaking to her calmly, explaining each step even though Maria barely registered the words. We're going to keep a close eye on your vitals, she said. If you feel worse, let us know. Maria wanted to laugh at the idea that things could feel worse. Dr. Harris appeared again, standing at the foot of the bed. I want to be very clear with you, he said. Your skin was acting as a barrier. That barrier was destroyed. Right now your body is fighting an infection that should never have had access in the first place. He paused, letting the weight of that settle. The next 24 to 48 hours are critical, he continued. We're doing everything we can to support your body while it fights. Maria nodded weakly, tears pooling in the corners of her eyes, slipping down toward her ears. She had gone to a spa. She had laid back in a comfortable chair, trusting someone who smiled and spoke with confidence. Now she lay in a hospital bed surrounded by machines, her life measured in numbers on a screen. As the nurse covered her with a blanket, Maria's thoughts turned inward, sharp with regret. She hadn't ignored pain because she was reckless. She had ignored it because she had been told, over and over, that pain was progress. She had trusted the wrong signals. Her body had warned her. She just hadn't known how to listen. Maria woke slowly, as if being pulled back into the world against her will. At first, there was only darkness. Then sound crept in, soft rhythmic beeping somewhere nearby. A low hum, the distant murmur of voices that didn't seem meant for her. Her body felt heavy, anchored to the bed. When she tried to move, nothing happened. Panic flickered briefly, then faded as exhaustion pressed down again. She opened her eyes. The ceiling above her was unfamiliar, a dull off-white broken by fluorescent panels. A clear tube ran past her field of vision, disappearing into her arm. Another rested beneath her nose, cool and dry, delivering oxygen with each shallow breath. Her face felt strange, not burning the way it had before, but tight, immobilized, as if wrapped in something stiff and foreign. She raised her hand slowly, hesitantly, and touched her cheek. Bandages, thick ones. The realization landed quietly but heavily. She wasn't in danger anymore, but she wasn't finished either. A nurse noticed her movement and stepped closer. "Hi, Maria," she said gently. "You're in the ICU. You've been asleep for a while." Maria tried to speak. Her throat felt raw, her lips dry. "Water," she whispered. The nurse nodded, adjusting the bed slightly and offering her ice chips instead. "Small sips," she said. "Your body's still recovering." "Recovering." Maria let the word roll around in her mind, unsure what it meant now. "How long?" she asked hoarsely. "About 36 hours, the nurse replied. "You had a rough night, but you stabilized." Maria closed her eyes again, relief and fear colliding in her chest. Stabilized meant alive. It didn't mean whole. Later, Dr. Harris came in, his expression the same calm seriousness Maria remembered from the ER. He pulled up a chair beside her bed, not rushing, not avoiding her eyes. "We got the infection under control," he said. "The antibiotics worked. Your vitals are improving." Maria nodded faintly, but he continued, "There's damage." The word landed like a quiet crack through glass. He didn't soften it. He didn't dress it up. "Your skin sustained a deep chemical burn," he explained. "Some areas are healing well, others, not as much." Maria swallowed painfully. "My face," she said. It wasn't a question. Dr. Harris nodded. "There's tissue damage, some superficial necrosis. We're monitoring it closely." Necrosis. Dead tissue. Her chest tightened. "What does that mean?" she asked. "It means," he said carefully, "that there's a high likelihood of scarring, possibly permanent changes in pigmentation, texture changes." He paused, letting her absorb it. "You may need months of follow-up care," he continued. "Wound management, possibly reconstructive treatments down the line." Maria stared at him, the words blurring together. Scarring, permanent, months. Her mind flashed back to the towel on her mirror. The careful avoidance, the hope that fixing one thing would give her back a sense of ease in her own skin. She had wanted less. She might be left with more. "Will I look the same?" she asked quietly. Dr. Harris didn't lie. "No," he said. "You'll look different." The honesty hurt more than false reassurance ever could. After he left, Maria lay in silence, listening to the machines breathe for her, measure her, keep watch over her fragile body. The room felt too quiet now, the crisis replaced by something heavier and harder to escape. Time. Isabel came in that afternoon, her face tired but relieved. She took Maria's hand gently, careful not to disturb the lines and wires. "You scared me," Isabel said softly. "I scared myself," Maria replied. They sat together without speaking for a long moment. There was nothing left to explain, no justifications to defend. Eventually, Maria spoke again. "Can I see it?" she asked. Isabel hesitated. "Are you sure?" Maria nodded. The nurse returned with a handheld mirror, small and unassuming. She waited, giving Maria space. With trembling hands, Maria lifted the mirror toward her face. At first, she saw only bandages, thick layers carefully placed, hiding what lay beneath. But along the edges, where skin was visible, she caught glimpses, discoloration, unevenness, areas that looked fragile and raw, others that seemed unnaturally pale. It didn't look like her. The mirror slipped from her fingers. landing softly on the bed. Tears welled up, silent and unstoppable. "I didn't want this," she whispered. Isabel squeezed her hand. "I know." Maria turned her head slightly, staring at the wall instead of her reflection. "I was scared of my skin," she said. "I thought it made me look broken." Her voice cracked. "Now I'm scared I actually am." The realization settled in slowly, painfully. She had spent years fearing acne scars, texture, imperfections that only she seemed to notice. She had believed those flaws defined how she moved through the world, how visible she was allowed to be. Now, faced with real damage that could not be hidden with lighting or angles, she understood the difference. Before, her fear had been about appearance. Now, it was about identity, about whether she would recognize herself again. That night, alone once more, Maria lay awake listening to the quiet hum of the ICU. She thought about the moment she had closed her eyes at the spa, trusting that chair, that voice, that promise. She thought about how small that decision had felt at the time, how ordinary, and how permanent its consequences might be. She had been afraid of being seen as flawed. Now she feared something deeper, that she might never again feel at home in her own body. Recovery gave Maria time. Too much time some days. Once the immediate danger passed and the monitors were no longer the center of every conversation, her world slowed to a pace she hadn't experienced in years. The pain dulled into something manageable. The antibiotics ran their course. The nurses stopped checking her vitals every hour. What remained was silence and questions. At first, Maria avoided thinking about the spa altogether. The memory felt radioactive, something that might flare up if she touched it too closely. But as the days passed, avoidance turned into restlessness, then into anger. One afternoon, sitting propped up in her hospital bed with her laptop balanced carefully on her knees, she typed the spa's name into the search bar. The website still looked pristine, same clean layout, same reassuring language, same promises of advanced medical-grade safe and effective treatments. Maria clicked on the reviews again. 5 stars, hundreds of them, but this time she read more slowly. She noticed patterns she hadn't seen before. Similar phrases repeated across different profiles. Vague descriptions, no specifics, no timelines, no mention of complications, only triumphs. She clicked on a few reviewer profiles. Some had reviewed only one business. Some didn't exist beyond that single comment. Her stomach tightened. She searched deeper. The spa's business registration led to a generic LLC. The listed address matched the mall location, but the license number on the website didn't correspond to any medical provider in the state database. She searched the owner's name. Nothing. Then she searched older business records. That was when she found it. A similar spa, different name. Same address, same branding style, same language, closed 2 years earlier. Another name surfaced beneath that one. Same pattern, same promises. Maria leaned back against the pillows, a cold clarity settling in. This wasn't one bad decision by one careless technician. This was a system. A system designed to look just medical enough to inspire trust, without the oversight that actual medicine requires. A system that relied on marketing language instead of informed consent, on confidence instead of credentials. Hollywood Peel, one archived page read in bold letters. She searched the terms separately. What she found made her chest tighten. There was no standardized treatment by that name, no regulated protocol, no universally accepted concentration or method. It was a marketing phrase, an umbrella term used to sell high-strength acids without clearly disclosing what was being applied to the skin. In other words, it meant whatever the provider wanted it to mean. Maria closed her laptop slowly. For the first time since the ICU, she felt something stronger than fear. She felt fury, not just at the spa, at the entire structure that allowed this to happen quietly, repeatedly, to people like her, people who weren't reckless, who weren't chasing extremes, who just wanted to feel normal in their own skin again. She thought about the language the technician had used. Your skin is thick. Stronger works better. Pain means it's effective. None of it was technically illegal. All of it was deeply misleading. They hadn't sold her skincare. They had sold her hope. Hope carefully packaged for someone tired enough to stop interrogating it. Later that night, Maria opened a blank document. Her hands trembled slightly as she began to type. She didn't write angrily. She didn't exaggerate. She didn't threaten lawsuits or call for vengeance. She told the truth. She described the appointment, the words that reassured her, the pain she had been told to ignore, the progression of symptoms, the ER, the ICU. She wrote about how her skin barrier had been destroyed, about infection, about sepsis, about waking up bandaged and being told she would likely carry scars for the rest of her life. She didn't name names. She didn't have to. By the time she finished, her story was longer than she had intended. It wasn't dramatic. It was factual, calm, measured. She posted it on a consumer review forum and shared it anonymously in a skincare discussion group. Then she closed her laptop and waited. The responses came faster than she expected. I had something similar happen. They told me the burning was normal too. I thought I was the only one. Some messages were from women younger than her, others from women in their 50s and 60s. Different cities. Same story. Maria read them all, her anger sharpening into resolve. This wasn't about her anymore. It was about a pattern that thrived in silence. In the quiet moments before sleep, Maria thought about how close she had come to not being here at all, how a delay of another day, another night of waiting, might have changed everything. She had trusted because she didn't know what questions to ask. Now she knew, and she understood something she hadn't before. Danger doesn't always look reckless. Sometimes it looks professional. Sometimes it smells like essential oils. And sometimes it speaks softly, confidently, and tells you exactly what you want to hear. Weeks later, back in her apartment, Maria stood alone in the bathroom. The mirror was uncovered. The towel lay folded neatly on the counter, no longer serving its old purpose. The lighting was the same as it had always been, bright, unforgiving, but Maria didn't reach to dim it. She looked at herself. Her skin was not what it had been. Some areas had healed unevenly, leaving faint but unmistakable scars. There were patches where the color didn't quite match anymore, where pigment had been lost or altered. The texture was different, the symmetry slightly off. It wasn't the face she had gone looking for, but it was her face. She leaned closer, studying it not with judgment this time, but with something closer to acceptance. The fear that once made her hide had changed shape. It no longer whispered about imperfections. Now it spoke clearly. It reminded her how fragile the line between self-care and self-harm could be when trust was misplaced. Maria thought about the warnings she wished she had understood sooner. Pain that feels like burning is not normal. Skin that leaks fluid is not purging. Swelling, fever, a racing heart. These are not signs of progress. They are signs to stop, to seek help, to choose safety over promises. If you are considering a strong peel, she thought, know who is holding the acid, know the concentration, know the risks. If they cannot explain what could go wrong, they are not qualified to do it. And if you are already in pain, real pain, do not wait. Hours matter, days matter. Lives can change in less time than that. Maria straightened, meeting her own eyes in the mirror. She had gone looking for a new face. What she found instead was a scar, one that would stay with her, not just on her skin, but in her memory. A reminder that no version of beauty is worth trading your health for, and that sometimes survival itself is the most honest form of self-care.
Thank you for staying until the end with Return to Life. If you found a sense of connection or a small spark of hope, carry it with you as you return to everyday life. We look forward to seeing you in the stories ahead.